So let's get started. Kentucky State Senate is still scheduled to proceed on hearing the impeachment trial against Fayette County Circuit Court Judge Julie Goodman, even after the state Supreme Court issued a ruling this week to drop the impeachment altogether. Articles of impeachment were passed by the State House of Representatives on March 20th, alleging misdemeanors in office that rose to abuse of power and ignoring binding precedents. Following the High Court's April 6th ruling to drop the impeachment for not meeting the definition of a misdemeanor and not affording Goodman due process, Senate President Robert Stivers issued a statement saying, in part, the Senate's focus remains on carrying out its duties as outlined in the Constitution of Kentucky, that each branch of government operates with integrity, and that concerns about judicial conduct can be raised and addressed without fear of retaliation. Former State Senator Whitney Westerfield, who participated in the 2023 impeachment trial against Commonwealth's Attorney Ronnie Goldie, shared his thoughts with us.
I think it takes us to a really uncertain place about the powers of the General Assembly and the powers of the Supreme Court. And I'm not sure it's a good place for us to be.
He is charged.
The Senate's current timeline is allowing 3 days for the House prosecution to present its case starting on April 16th, followed by 3 days for Goodman to present a defense, with the findings presented to the full Senate on April 24th. Gus, I want to start here with you. Welcome. How confident are you that a trial is going to be taking place here despite the court's ruling?
Well, thanks, Bodie. It's good to be here. I think it's pretty clear from President Stivers' public comments and behind the scenes that they are still really thinking about going forward here. Just for context, you know, this took a lot for the House to even move forward. If you listen to Representative Nemes during his floor talks in the House and everything that they talked about leading up to that, this was not a decision that they took lightly. This is not something that they view as political or something that came out of the woodwork. They were very deliberative about this. They were very thoughtful about their approach to this. I think that there's a lot of sense in Frankfurt that the Supreme Court decision is just that. It's a decision, it's a talking point, but obviously the legislature over the past couple of years has been very strong about their opinion of their role in the legislative process. And if you look at the different sections dealing with impeachment of the Constitution, it's pretty clear, at least to me and to a lot of other folks, that the impeachment power is inviolable. And so I think you're going to see a lot of discussion over the next couple of days when it comes to this decision. But I think that there's obviously a lot of momentum and a lot of thought that they're going to continue to move forward with this, as noted by the president's comments. And I think that you know, this is not something that has just sort of come up out of nowhere. And I think that's what they're going to do moving forward.
Jonathan, what do you think?
Well, I trust Gus's judgment on what the Republicans are going to do. And if he's right, then we have a constitutional crisis that's potentially at hand. You know, the Constitution is clear that the Senate has the right to impeach judges, but it's also clear that in interpreting the Constitution is the realm of the Supreme Court. And so when we have the Supreme Court you know, issuing a strong decision, it is going to potentially lead to a real clash. And one of my favorite historical quotes that actually probably didn't happen was Andrew Jackson once said about a Supreme Court decision he didn't like. He said, "They've made their decision, now let them try to enforce it." And the same thing might be Senator Stivers and others might be saying the same thing, that okay, the Supreme Court has had its say, but we're the ones in charge. And so what happens, you know, we'll see first if she's convicted. We'll see first if they hold the hearings and the trial, and then we'll see if she's convicted. And if she is, I think we'll have a real doozy on our hands.
And if they continue to move forward with this trial, the justices in their ruling, they say that Goodman's due process rights were violated because she was not able to publicly defend her decisions in some pending cases. Now, she did come and testify before the impeachment committee, and her team will have those 3 days to present a defense. But because she really cannot comment on those pending cases, do you think that complicates things?
Yeah, you know, the Supreme Court has its role here, and they've got to determine whether due process is happening under the Constitution. And what they have to say is supposed to be the law of the land. But that conflicts with the Senate's duties that are in the Constitution that give them the authority to impeach. So it really is going to be quite a challenging thing to resolve.
Gus, your thoughts?
Well, I think it brings up a very interesting conversation, because normally in cases like this where there's adjudication about a law, whether it's constitutional, it's after the fact, right? It's after something's been passed or vetoed or overridden. This is interesting because it's ongoing. And so I think it presents an interesting legal argument because using the Supreme Court's logic, in my opinion, what would stop them from basically, as a law is being debated and passed in the General Assembly, for them to make a ruling on a law before the case, or in this case, a statute, has been rectified? And so I think it's a very interesting and novel time for Kentuckians because basically you have one part of the Constitution that's very clear that the House has the power to impeach, the Senate must then, after that, hold a trial, and you've got the Supreme Court saying something completely different. So I think all of Kentuckians are living in a very interesting time here that, to my knowledge, hasn't really happened, where you had a direct conflict between a Supreme Court decision during an ongoing impeachment. I think that it presents a very interesting and novel new case of challenges for the Senate to take up.
Just under a minute left here, guys. We talked about this a little this week, Jonathan, which is, if they end up going through with the trial and then she is convicted, how likely is this that this will go to the federal level?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't studied the constitutional law as it applies, but I would conceive that there might be an opportunity to appeal to federal ruling if there is this continued controversy. So again, but we've never been in this situation, as Gus mentioned, and so we really are going to have to pay close attention and see what happens.
Quick last word here, Gus.
Yeah, I would just say to what Jonathan said, there's been state cases in the past where on a procedural level, what the House and Senate did was sort of taken up in the Supreme Court rulings. This is a very new and nuanced thing where they're basically putting themselves in the middle of a procedure, and that has not happened before, to my knowledge.
All right.